Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sports Sitdown. I'm Sunay Sanghani, and I'm your host for today. And I'm joined by Kiran Costa and Nate Martin for this very special episode because today we have Quenton Meeks joining us for an interview. Quenton plays for the LA Chargers right now. He's a defensive back, and he played for Stanford football for 3 years, and he is in his second season for the LA Chargers, and he's getting ready. Training camp's a week away. Quenton, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for joining us. Glad you could join us today. As I said, training camp is coming up. It's a week away. You're adjusting to a new season, new situation with COVID, obviously. No OTAs, no football practices, or very little football practices, and also we just announced no preseason. How have you adjusted to life without these activities, life with COVID in terms of football?
It's definitely been a weird year, not having those OTAs, not being able to be in those meetings with those coaches. I mean, we have virtual meetings, but we weren't able to go out and practice and, apply what we learned in the meetings. So that was a little different. So we had to take a little different approach to the offseason. Had to kind of look at training a little differently. Couldn't peak at the same time as I usually would, in normal off seasons. Kind of had to play it by ear on how hard to train and what type the time of the year to do it. But it's been good though. I've had to kind of switch up my training method a little bit. Not have as much weights as I'm used to being around a gym. So I've had to come up with some really creative ways to train my body. And it's actually really benefited me a lot. I feel like a much better athlete now. I've had, time I was able to finish up a quarter of school during the spring because of everything was online. So I'm a quarter closer way to graduating, which is good. And I was just able to grow in other areas of my life as well with much more free time. And I think that's very important as a person. It was pretty productive considering.
So obviously a big issue right now is that the NFL really doesn't have a plan in terms of how with COVID. Considering this, there's been a lot of outcry, a lot of tweets and posts from stars of the league. Do you feel safe playing an NFL season and traveling the country playing different teams in different states?
I definitely do. I think with the protocols that they're putting in place right now, before we even step in the building and have physicals, we have to have 2 negative tests. So we have to test us twice, and we have to come back negative both times. And then we're going to be doing testing every day. I know for the first 2 weeks, they've been talking about having us wear some type of face covering for our mouth and stuff like that. So I think with as much testing as they're going to be doing during the season, anybody that steps out on the field is going to be pretty safe. And feels comfortable playing. So I think with the precaution that they've talked about, and we still haven't discussed everything that they plan on doing, but so far with the amount of testing that they're going to do, I think it'll be pretty safe for us.
You obviously played for the Jags a couple years ago. What was it like playing with such a dynamic player like Jalen Ramsey, and what did you as a rookie learn from him as a more experienced player?
Oh, it was great. I'm a football fan first and foremost. I grew up watching football my whole life. So I knew who Jalen Ramsey was before I came to Jacksonville. I knew how much of a beast he was. So I was excited to get there and just learn from him. Not only him, but another corner they had, A.J. Bouye, who's a top corner in the game as well. And learning from both of those guys was just amazing for me. Learning from Jalen, he's the most gifted athlete I've probably seen on the football field. Just things he can do just effortlessly. But what really makes him who he is just his mentality. He's what I like to say, a dog on the field. He's takes no prisoners. That's how you got to play football. That's how you got to play defense. Talk trash, get into the opponent's head. And that's just the mentality of a defensive player. This is not a nice game. You can be that nice guy off the field, but once you step in between the lines, you got to become a warrior. And seeing him seeing his mentality on the field, and seeing other guys in Jacksonville like Telvin Smith, Miles Jack, Calais Campbell, like just seeing their mentalities as defensive players in this game kind of really shaped my mentality and how I kind of approach the game now.
Yeah, I believe when you joined Jacksonville, that was like the peak of them being such a dominant defense. I clearly remember them competing against the Patriots in that playoff.
Oh, yeah, they could have. There's debates on the controversial call during that game that they said they should have won the game. But the next year when I was there, my rookie year, we played them week 2 and beat them pretty good, and but we kind of fell off after that. But that defense though was like tops in the league.
Right. And yeah, I like their nickname, Saxonville.
Yeah. Very fitting.
So on a similar note, you've worked out with a lot of NFL players this summer, obviously fellow Stanford safety Justin Reed, and also Landon Collins. We saw that on your Instagram. And also you went to the DB Precision Camp with Ryan Clark, Super Bowl winning safety. What have you learned from them, and what have you worked on this summer?
It was great to just be around those guys, especially my boy Justin. That's one of my best friends, and just being able to be with him and train with him again. Really, first time since college. I was on actually the same field as him, doing work and everything like that. And just being around him was very motivating for me. As you guys know, he's a starter in the league and is a very good player. Has been doing some great things in the league so far. And he's gotten better and is going to continue to get better. And the thing for me was just to see how the man works. There's a reason he's so good. And, he just continued off of what I saw in college, what we all saw in college, the flashes that he showed. And you see why he's so good. And it's the way he works. He's a very talented player, but he works his ass off, not only in football, but everything else in life. He manages all his stuff off the field very well, the professional manner. He's one of my best friends, but I really look up to the guy, just how he handles life. And working with him again was motivating. Working with the other guys like Landon Collins, Dante Jackson, CJ Rivas, DB Precision, working with Ryan Clark, who's NFL great. I remember watching him play when I was growing up and just seeing again, he's a guy similar to me. He was an undrafted guy, had to prove himself in the league. But you see why he's successful again. It's a mentality, and that's a lot of what I've learned through this game. Is a lot of life is mentality and being able to fight through adversity.
You mentioned Justin Reed. Now, I'm a season ticket holder at Stanford. Been season ticket holder since 2014, and I remember you two just dominating in that secondary. Going up against some of the best offenses in the country. Mainly the DB coach there. I remember my dad told me about Dwayne Aquino when he was hired. My dad said, this dude is really good, and I can see why now. What was that like learning from him?
Oh, it was great. Coach Aquino is the best DB coach in college football, in my opinion, a lot of people's opinion. And there's a reason for that. He's very detailed in how he coaches us. Every player that I've talked to and has played with him, coached with him, says that he added so much to their game, and they couldn't imagine having another coach in college to prepare them to even be in the NFL now or even have a shot at the NFL. And I felt that as soon as I walked in the building with him. He was so knowledgeable and everything, and I was just a sponge trying to take in as much as I could early on in my career. And it definitely benefited me throughout my career, my study habits. The plays I made, a lot of them was coming from, what I heard in the meeting rooms from him coaching a certain specific detail point that another coach wouldn't, really highlight, and me taking that in, studying that during the week, and then seeing it in the game and just making the play because I felt comfortable. But he's definitely shaped who I am as a player today, and I have the utmost respect for Coach Aquino, and I wouldn't be who I am without it.
And he obviously trusted you because I remember you made a big impact midway through your freshman season, specifically that game against Washington State up in Pullman. Rain was pouring down. and it wasn't looking pretty for Stanford, but you came up with 2 interceptions as
Mm-hmm.
well as a big clutch pick 6 in the Rose Bowl. I was there for that game, and we went crazy when that happened. How did it feel to have an impact like that so early on as a freshman?
Oh, it was a surreal feeling. I was really motivated coming into college because I felt like I wasn't recruited as highly as I wanted to be. Even though no matter what schools I would have had, I would have chose Stanford 10 out of 10 times. But just the other things that go along with recruiting. I'm a very competitive person, so I want to be considered one of the best. And when I'm not, it really frustrates me. So I came into college, like, before I got there, my mentality was I wanted to play as a freshman. Like, I knew it was a long shot, but I just wanted to do it. And I worked hard at it, and I got the opportunity to do it. And Coach Keenan gave me the opportunity, and, I took it and ran with it. And being able to make those plays for my team, whenever I'm on the field, I feel like, every player is accountable to the man next to them. And for me, I never wanted to step on the field and feel like I was the reason the team lost the game or my teammates couldn't count on me. So that's why I always wanted to step on and be as prepared as possible. And I listened in the meetings throughout the week and took really detailed notes so that, I could play well for my teammates. And it paid off my freshman year especially. That's when I had my most interceptions and made some of my biggest plays in big moments. And, the grace of God, film study, and being prepared and right place, right time, and the coaches trusting in me was what, led me to make those plays.
What you of course went undrafted in the 2018 NFL draft and then ended up playing 8 games that year. What was the process like going from not taken at all in the draft, and what can you just talk us through your process from undrafted to playing in the NFL?
Yeah, that process is definitely the toughest experience I've ever gone through in my life. It's something I'm still I am fighting through because once you're tagged with the undrafted label, you're tagged with that until you prove that you can play. It is what it is. At this point, I've kind of embraced it now. There's a lot of times throughout this process, or that process especially that year, where I was frustrated, questioning whether, because the situation, maybe football is not for me. Not that I didn't love it, but, obviously stuff like this wouldn't happen in my thinking, like if it was meant for me. But I was looking at it the wrong way. And, if it wasn't for my parents helping me pull me out of that situation, praying a lot and just staying to focus. I was in a situation where I was fighting for 1 or 2 reps every period, and sometimes I wouldn't get any. So my thing was I had to create my own reps. And so what I would do is before practice and after practice, I would get on the field and do extra drills by myself. And for me, those were my reps because I couldn't rely on the team giving me reps. Like, I had to get better for myself because I was like, well, whether this team keeps me or not, like, I have to keep progressing in my career, if I want to. I can't look at where I'm at now. I got to look at where I'm going. And it definitely paid off for me throughout that season. I got brought up to the regular roster after being on the practice squad for 4 games. And then the 8th game, I was able to play in London, played really well, had 2 pass breakups. But then, unfortunately, I got injured. But just going through that experience really shaped, my mentality for the rest of my career. And I know whatever I want, I'm going to have to fight for it. And now I kind of wouldn't want it any other way.
You grew up and you were born and you went to high school in San Diego. Of course, the Chargers are now in LA, but is playing for your hometown team and at least close to where you grew up a dream come true for you?
It definitely is. I actually grew up mostly in Atlanta, Georgia. I was born in Knoxville. But I spent my high school years in San Diego. So that's really kind of where I consider home for me. But it's very nice being back here. This is to me, this is the best part of the country, Southern California. I never want to leave, so I'm going to be working really hard to stay here. But it's this, my environment is very important to me, where I am, and like being in a positive environment in Southern California, coming from the South, kind of a different culture there. I'm treated more as a person out here than where I'm from. And I just like the vibe. I love the weather. It's perfect all year. I can go outside all the time. And then I'm close to my high school friends and people who supported me in the high school, and San Diego's right down the street. So, it's just the perfect environment for me, and I'm just thankful to be here, and I'm going to work hard to stay here.
Yeah, because your dad was a coach, wasn't he, in the NFL? He coached for the Chargers, and now you're on the Chargers. I just find that really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how life comes full circle.
Exactly.
That was my dad's last stop before he retired, and then look at me now. So
you mentioned your parents and how they supported you a little bit earlier. Your dad is obviously a defensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts during their Super Bowl run. Could you talk a little bit about what he has meant to you throughout your career, and how he has supported and guided you, and given you advice as you've gone along?
Oh, he's definitely been. Both my parents have been a great influence in my life. My dad being, the man in my life that has shaped me the most. I remember growing up, my dad would always tell me if I wanted anything in life, I was going to have to fight for it and have to work for it. And that this life is not easy and it's very competitive. And he was like, I don't care if you become a garbage man, but you just become the best garbage man in the world. And it was, what he was saying in that was, no matter what you do, I don't care what it is, like whether that's doing your chores at home or your schoolwork or what you do on the athletic field, just be the best at it. Give it your 100% effort and be the best. And that was the biggest thing for me becoming a man, is just knowing that, this life is not easy, and everything you want in life, you have to fight for. Both my parents were very influential on, encouraging me to be well educated. My mom and my dad both. When I was little, I remember specifically, like, I did bad on the spelling test, and both of them told me I couldn't play the next football game until I got my grades up. And that right there was like the only lesson I needed to know. You go take sports away from me, I'm gonna do well in the school. So, but like,
and then he went on to Stanford.
Right? Exactly. So that one lesson right there was all I needed.
Yeah. Parents, take note.
And like from then on, like, I took school very serious. Not that I didn't up until that point, but like I actually took school seriously. And cause I didn't want sports take it away from me. But it was a great motivation. And then, when it came time to choose a school, I was like, well, I've been taking school seriously my whole life. Like, why wouldn't I go to a school that school is the emphasis? A lot of college football players, they go to school and, they're only told, all you got to do is play ball. That's real. But not at Stanford. Like, you got to do your work and you got to learn. And like, that's what I wanted to do. And having the example of my dad, seeing his career, what he fought through in his career, it just lets me know that, I can fight through any adversity in mine. Seeing my mom and the adversity she's fought through in her life, shows me that I can do the same thing as well. So I'm just blessed to have the parents I
have. These next few questions here, we're going to stay with that serious note a little bit. But my first question is, there's a little bit of adversity right now in terms of COVID. I want to bring the conversation back to that. There's obviously been a lot of players that are speaking out against it. It's trending on Twitter. What are your thoughts on that? And do you think there's a solution to this? What do you as a player want from the
NFL? So I have I have my own thoughts on the the whole COVID situation, like in and of itself. I'm not going to get into those thoughts. But as far as like, you know, our safety as players and playing with the virus going on and everything, I think they're definitely what the NFL has done so far, even though it's been kind of delayed in getting us the message from the stuff that's coming out now with the daily testing and stuff like that. I think those are the necessary steps that are going to be needed to be taken for guys to feel comfortable out there playing. Also, it's going to be interesting to see in about a week, you know, how many guys come back with positive tests. You know, we got the reports from the NBA that nobody there was 0 positive tests, but there's already been reports that there's been, I think, close to like 80 in the NFL from guys done.
They just reported it as 59. They initially reported it as 95. Now they reverted it back to 59.
Okay. And that's another thing with the whole numbers and the data that's been going on with this thing the whole time. We're not gonna get into that.
Yeah.
But
I think we get what you're saying.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. Okay. Y'all see where I'm going.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where we have to make sure that guys feel comfortable playing. That's the most important thing. There is an opt-out clause this year for guys who don't feel comfortable playing, and you know don't want to take that risk. But there's also a risk in that for your career. You know, if you choose to take a year off, I mean that can be dangerous for you. So guys are kind of in a tough situation, and with the information with this virus really not being consistent throughout the whole time, everybody in like the country is like uncertain about it. You know, and including us as players, you know, up until really today and yesterday, we really didn't know what was going to happen. All we knew was the date we had to report, and that's about it. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how things play out.
Another big thing, as if COVID wasn't enough, the Black Lives Matter movement of this year. It's a lot of athletes have been carrying this conversation and continue to plan so throughout the season. How do you plan to use your platform to promote social change and continue the conversation?
I haven't really thought too much about that quite yet. To be honest, my first focus has to be to make the team first. That's just the position I'm in. So I won't have a platform if I don't make the team. So, well, much of one, I'll have one, but like it'll be much greater, obviously, you know, being on the team. So that's my first priority. But I've been very vocal ever since all this stuff started on my social media. I've been posting a lot of stuff, a lot of personal stuff, a lot of educational stuff, trying to just to raise the awareness of the world of like what's going on. Because the thing about this is there's been over 400 years of, you know, racism in this country, and so much of it's still hidden. And the thing about it is like we as people, like we can't run from the history. And like it's very important to learn the history, the raw and uncut truth about the history. And there's some things about America that, you know, aren't that great. You know, this is, in my opinion, still the greatest country in the world. But like we have to look at, you know, the terrible evils that have been done in this country too and be honest about it. Now, once we do that, it's okay. Now we have to come with the empathetic heart and the understanding heart as people. And we just have to understand that we all come from different backgrounds, social backgrounds, cultures, skin tones, hair texture, eye color, religions, genders, you name it. But at the end of the day, we're all still human and we're all still one. And I don't think we'll ever be in a world where everybody believes that, because there are still a lot of people who need to feel that superiority to feel good about themselves as people, which is very ignorant and very sad. But that's just the world we live in, and I don't think that's ever going to go away totally. But the thing is, now we have to get as many people on board that want equality for everybody and that see everybody as a human and don't need to put themselves above people. I've always been that way, and I get a lot of that from my dad, him being an NFL coach his whole life and people kind of knowing who he was. Like, I would see people coming to my dad all the time, like asking pictures or autographs or saying this, there, and that. And, like, my dad tried to be so low-key at who he was, and, like, when he was out in public, he didn't want to be recognized, like, because he was just like, I want to be treated like they would treat anybody else. Like, I don't feel like I'm better than anybody just because of what I do. Like, I'm just like everybody else. And that's kind of how I want to live life. And, like, that's why I appreciated going to a place like Stanford, because, like, unlike other schools, like, you walk around campus at Stanford, you're treated like a normal person. It's actually nice. And so until we get, enough people to learn about the history of this country, be comfortable being uncomfortable and having those uncomfortable conversations with people who go through things. But, I think it's good that stuff gets brought to light, because once it gets brought to light, now we can have conversations and now we can push forward and make it a better place for everybody,
Well, that does it for all our questions, and thanks for stopping by. It was great to talk to you. We talked a little bit about everything, parenting, even football. We'll be rooting for you next season. Good luck for your season during training camp, and also good luck for finishing up your classes. We hope you can graduate.
Yes.
And thank you so much for stopping by. We'll see you next time, Sports Sit Down fans.